everyone, and welcome to an all-new Book It. I'm Carol Ann Riddell. We kick things off today with a book that charts American history through voices that haven't always been heard, women's voices. Writer and consultant Donna Rubin is here to talk about her book, Speaking While Female, 75 Extraordinary Speeches by American Women. Donna, thanks so much for coming in today.
Thank you, Carol Ann.
So as I understand it, this book came out of your own search for speeches by American women, is that right?
Yes, it is.
And what did you find initially?
Well, I've been a speechwriter for a long time and a speech consultant, and I repeatedly, over and over, heard people referencing speeches by men. Always speeches by men. I mean, whether it was Winston Churchill or John F. Kennedy or Robert Kennedy or Martin Luther King or Frederick Douglass, always, always men, and I just started wondering, where were all the women?
And so what did you find when you went looking?
Well, I started a deep dive. I mean, I wouldn't say rabbit hole, I would say more like an opening, because it opened up this vast world that I knew nothing about. It's the world of women's oratory, women's speech through the centuries. I started looking at old manuscripts, archives, out-of-print books, online, old bookstores, looking for overlooked speeches by women, which I found by the thousands.
So what happened? How did we end up there? Did history ignore what women had been saying, forget what women had been saying?
Yes.
Yes to both?
In general, I mean, we know this, right? They're gatekeepers. There are editors, there are publishers, and these are the people who decide what goes in and what doesn't. And just think about throughout history, if an event was happening or a woman was speaking and a journalist wasn't there to record it, and an editor didn't care about it and put it in the paper, and a publisher didn't put it in the collection, then we never hear about it. So
Right.
women have been speaking, it's just that people didn't care enough what they had to say to record their words and keep them for posterity.
So let's talk about some of the speeches in the collection. Particularly, I'm curious about the earliest ones. What's an example of one of the very early speeches you found?
Well, the book starts in 1637, and the first speech is by Anne Hutchinson. She was a preacher in the Puritan era, in what's now Boston. And she was moved by the Spirit, by her religious faith, to preach in her house. That was a big no-no.
Yes.
She got banished for that. And she had a heresy trial. They put her on trial, and at her trial, she spoke up in defense, in self-defense. And she said, I was moved by the Spirit to speak out. And of course, they banished her. We have her words, and those are in the collection. That's the earliest recorded written speech that we have by a woman.
I was struck by Emma.
In America.
In America, okay. I was struck by Emma Willard, who spoke to the New York State Legislature, and I think it was 1819. She was basically advocating for women to have access to higher education, which I gather was fairly radical idea at the time.
It was absolutely radical. I mean, women were not considered worthy of investment in study because they were just going to be working in the home. But Emma Willard was furious about it. She saw her brothers go off to school. She was intellectually curious, and she was furious. Why can't I get more education? So she conceived of this idea to have an academy for women, higher education for women. And the key idea is that the government would pay for it.
Right.
It wouldn't just be a private institution, but it was a public good, because she argued if women are more educated, they will raise more educated families. It will be good for the new nation.
Yeah.
Because after all, in 1817, 1819, it was a brand new nation still.
So tell me a little bit about Jane Johnson from 1855. Her words in the book are only, I think, about a page and a half, but they were very powerful.
Very powerful. Jane Johnson was a remarkable woman. She was an enslaved woman who was brought to the North with her master, her so-called owner, because he was going on a diplomatic assignment to Nicaragua. But she seized the opportunity in Philadelphia to break free. She was helped by an anti-slavery activist. And then there was a trial in court. And she spoke up with her own voice in the courtroom, and she said, I would rather die than go back. I would rather die than go back. And it's so moving to think about how difficult it must have been for her to stand up in a courtroom full of white people who had authority and power over her and use her voice. And she got off.
There are, of course, some very famous female speakers in the book, Eleanor Roosevelt, Michelle Obama. But who is someone that really strikes you, someone that we have not heard of?
Maybe Nene Yehi. She was an indigenous woman who in the early 18th century was involved in treaty negotiations with the Anglo settlers. And we only have her words because they were found on a scrap of paper that was torn and faded in the Library of Congress.
Oh my gosh.
But she spoke, I think she's the earliest recorded Native or indigenous woman's words that we have. And of course, we only have them because an Anglo person was there to write them down, because most Native American women didn't have a written language. Sure. They had an oral language.
One other speech I wanted to ask you about, I was very moved by what you included from Mary Fisher, who delivered this stunning speech at the Republican convention in 1992, I think it was. So tell us a little bit about her.
Mary Fisher, she really is a remarkable woman. She's still living and
yes.
still very active. She's an activist and also an artist. But Mary Fisher was given a diagnosis of HIV/AIDS. I think it was AIDS because her husband, her ex-husband, had been an intravenous drug user. But she came from this very, I don't want to say conservative, but a very proper Republican
yes.
family with
yes.
conservative social values. I mean, it was unheard of at that time because AIDS was associated, mostly with drug users and gay men.
Yes.
And she stood up in front of the Republican National Convention and she said, I am also the face of this disease. And
yeah.
Are we human? If we are human, we must have a human response to this terrible disease. We should all be invested and all be involved in the tragedy and the search for a cure. And she actually has been a beneficiary of new medications, and she's been in good health all these years.
Donna, you have said that you want to set the record straight. So do that for us. Set the record straight.
Who made history in America? The nation that we live in and that we're all beneficiaries of living here. The nation that we know, our values, our ideals come from all kinds of people, not just white men, not just men, but all kinds of people with all kinds of identities. And if we want to address the challenges that we all face today, then we have to really hear from all those voices and inspire, encourage all kinds of younger people from different backgrounds to speak up, to step up and use their voices.
I know that this book is part of a larger project as well called the Speaking While Female Speech Bank. So can you tell us about that?
Yes, I became so obsessed with this topic, I mean truly obsessed, that I spent all my free time looking up speeches by women by the thousands, not just from the United States, but from around the world. Right, and across time. I mean, from ancient times, from Roman times to the present. And I just put them all on this website as long as they were in the public domain. If they weren't, and I was able to, I secured copyright permission to publish them. And I put them on this website. There's thousands of them there, several thousands. They're organized thematically. And teachers are using it from the high school level up to the college level. Researchers are using it to supplement their course books and their textbooks and to broaden our understanding of really of who spoke and who helped change the world with their voice.
What a great resource. And people can just go on and look at that, right?
It's all free.
Okay, great. Just a last question for you, Donna. You dedicate your book to women speakers everywhere. In fact, you say, if you speak in public, this book is for you. And if you don't yet speak in public, this book is especially for you. So what is your message to women?
My message to all women of my age, of our age, to step up and use your expertise because the world needs to know what you have to say. But for younger women, for our children, our children's children, take advantage of the opportunities that you have. Gain confidence, step up and know that your voice really matters because our future is in your hands and we need to be the beneficiaries of your knowledge.
Donna, thank you so much for all this time. It was great to have you in.
Oh, thank you. It was really a pleasure.